Switzerland, from the public, you have received 226 votes. The winner, the champion of the Eurovision Song Contest 2024. It is Switzerland.
Hello and welcome back to Vote for the Music, the Eurovision podcast. I'm Benjamin Woodybank.
And I'm Tadeusz.
And a week on from the Eurovision 2024 Grand Final, I think the dust is beginning to settle.
This was somehow both the best and the worst Eurovision season of the 2020s, and so we all needed a minute after this.
It was an absolute insane turn of events, specifically on the 10th and 11th of May. That was the day before the Grand Final and the day of the Grand Final, all of which we'll get into a bit more in a future episode. But today we're going to be reflecting on that actual Grand Final itself, reflecting on the winner, which was of course Switzerland, Nemo, the code. We will be reflecting on the winners and the losers of the night, the general hosting of it, and everything in between. For more follow-ups on some of the scandals and difficulties of this year, stay tuned. We will be coming at you with those within the next few weeks. But without further ado, let's get into the episode and let's get into the Grand Final of the Eurovision Song Contest 2024.
This is to music first, always.
We are unstoppable.
I hope this contest can live up to its promise and continue to stand for peace and dignity for every person in this world. Thank you, vote for the music!
This is Vote for the Music, the Eurovision podcast.
Well, first of all, I think we should start at the most significant part of the Grand Final, which of course was our winner, Switzerland. It was The Code by Nemo. Now, long-time listeners to this podcast will look back to when we did our quickfire reviews in the run-up to the season, and we reviewed every single song individually, which you can go back and listen to if you want to. And I gave the very, very bold prediction at the time that the only song really that had any sort of chance of winning the Eurovision Song Contest, the clear winner for me, was always Switzerland. And while I know the general fandom opinion was something of Croatia or Italy really, I am very happy to be vindicated and completely right that Switzerland, which was my favourite from the very beginning, from the very second I first heard that song, I was almost certain was going to win the contest, did in fact win the contest. And I think we should have a small flashback now to just exactly how I closed our quickfire review of Switzerland back on the 16th of April. This is 100% what I think is going to win the Eurovision Song Contest this year. It's also my personal favourite of the entire song contest and has been from the moment I first listened to it. So we'll have to see just how things do pan out on the 11th of May, but from me, Switzerland gets a very, very big thumbs up, and I really look forward to seeing Nemo live on stage in Malmö. So yes, as you can tell, I'm very happy that that did come to pass. Obviously, I thought this song was absolutely fantastic. I thought on stage it worked really well. I thought the stage was really impressive, the way it was constantly a balancing act for Nemo across the first sort of 2 minutes, and then finally, when they find themselves completely, we get equilibrium as they spin round and round, perfectly balanced in pure joy and jubilation. I've always likened the big operatic final belt out just before that final chorus as very similar to what Jamala did with 1944, another completely awesome winning moment and something that completely grasped them for the joys as well back then. Incidentally, also the last time we were in Sweden. I think the fact Nemo obviously delivered the live vocals perfectly while doing all that staging, while with just a really good, really commercial, really interesting, really unique song, absolutely sold that. Not just to the juries, which of course put it first by a huge margin, a higher score than Loreen got with Tattoo last year, I think we have to point out, but also the fact that the televote rated it very highly as well. Now, while technically fifth in the televote, so that is the lowest televote winner of all time, I think we do have to point out that it only came one lower than France in the televote by just a single point. So essentially it was joint fourth in the televote, which is how, of course, it managed to win. And it won by quite a bit, 591 points to 547 points. That is the third highest points a winner has received ever, only second to Stefania by Kalush Orchestra and the Marpella Stories by Salvador Sobral. There were a lot of people making huge predictions this year that because this year was so open and without such an obvious winner to them, that we would get a very low scoring winning song, a bit like 2011, for example. However, I was always sure that if Nemo could do it, which I was always sure they could, it would get a very solid score. 226 points with the public is not bad anyway, and is a very respectable public score to win on. And then 365 with the jury is absolutely amazing.
Nemo won the trophy thanks to overwhelming support from the jury, claiming 22 12s and 6 10s. It seems that jury was unilateral in belief that their song was the best one.
And as much as obviously I'm the biggest cheerleader for the code as possible, I think a lot of this does come down to the Friday night and the jury show, which I did watch as a member of the press. And on the jury show, Nemo was exceptional, the best they have ever been. Actually, a lot of people were exceptional, even, for example, the United Kingdom, where the vocals have been pretty bad throughout all the performances. In the jury show, they were the best you could possibly have imagined, and I really wish Holly had done that the rest of the time. So I think some of those 46 jury points that the UK did get were from those vocals being very, very good. But interestingly, one of the countries that did not deliver very good vocals on that Friday night, actually some incredibly poor vocals on that Friday night, full of voice cracks and completely missing the notes, was France. Slamon's vocals on the jury show were utterly terrible. And I think this is the reason Nemo managed to have such an enormous, huge lead on that jury score, because a lot of people who originally would have voted for France did not vote for France. France still did pretty well on the juries. They still managed to sweep, because I think a mixture of jurors having already seen his performance on the semi-final, the same jurors that would have voted on both, although not voting for France, they would have seen that as the preview performance. So in the back of their mind, even though they weren't supposed to be judging it on that, they would have seen it done well. And then also there is the fact that the song itself is just pretty good, and there's a certain amount you can ignore vocals just to go, okay, this deserves some sort of point. And then also some jurors might have just been completely tone deaf. But France certainly underperformed because of that vocal on the jury final, so that has to be considered. Also, I think it should be pointed out, and I think not many people do talk about this, is the fact that I think the televote only semi-finals have completely cut into what I'd call jury fodder. That has gone. So the juries can now coalesce around a big contender to win. If you don't understand this, essentially, the televote only semi-finals take out the songs that the juries were getting through just by a small margin, and then throwing a lot of points away to the finals. So like your Boys Do Cry, like You're Not the Sames, like your Fate of Blacks from 2022, for example, only just managed to qualify, would not have qualified without the juries in the semi-finals, so would not qualify in this year. But in the final, the juries threw them loads and loads of points. The televote gave them practically nothing, and then they all ended up mid-table, where instead, because those aren't in the final, it means the points that they would have been throwing at jury fodder entries like those are going to actual songs that can win the contest instead, meaning the jury leads are much, much huger both this year and last year because of the televote only semi-final rules. So although it's a bit confusing, and it does seem quite ironic considering the fact that the televote only semi-finals are supposed to be there to empower the people and to embolden the televote, actually I think it has had the opposite effect in the final, because it's made the jury vote a lot stronger, and it's a lot harder to win the contest overall by just winning the televote now. But none of that should take away from Switzerland and Nemo's fantastic victory, which saw them catapult up that leaderboard to a total, of course, of 591 points, winning the contest for the first time since 1988, and the third time overall, 1956, 1988 and 2024. And of course, we'll be going back to Switzerland next year, likely to Zurich, maybe elsewhere, but likely to Zurich to see the Eurovision Song Contest 2025, the 69th Eurovision Song Contest. Outside of Switzerland, then, continuing to go down at leaderboard, we have obviously Croatia in second, an underperformance compared to what most people seem to think, but I will admit an overperformance compared to what I thought it would. I thought it would be going around 5th, 6th, 7th type area, although second obviously is great for them, great for Croatia as a nation. It is their best result ever, although I think a good amount of the reason they came second place instead of third or fourth place, which I think is where they would have placed, is the fact that the Netherlands got disqualified, which meant the vote could converge around Croatia instead of being split between Croatia and the Netherlands for the people voting for that kind of entry. Obviously, absolutely wonderful that Ukraine finished third place, the best a song has by far ever finished in second on the running order. If anyone could break the curse, it is Ukraine. They're absolutely wonderful. 453 points, well deserved there. Fourth place, France, Mon Amour. Their aim was always to do exactly what Marco Mengoni did last year, and they did exactly that, coming exactly the same as he did in fourth place. In sixth place, we have Ireland and Doomsday Blue. Now, if you think back to our quick fire review of Ireland, unlike Switzerland, that has not aged well at all. We both thought it was a non-qualifier. We both weren't impressed. We both really did not like it. Now, this has been the biggest grower of the season for me. Absolutely. The way they managed to revamp this, bring this to the Eurovision stage it incredibly well, incredibly professionally, incredibly slickly, meant this was just absolutely great. That national final performance, I still stand by, was utterly terrible. I didn't even think that much of it in the music video either, but what they managed to do on the Eurovision stage was nothing short of incredible. So much so that the juries, the actual juries, put this sixth. It wasn't just the juries who put it sixth. Televote also put this sixth, and also overall it ended up sixth. So that is a 666. Quite interestingly, it also garnered 666,000 viewers in Ireland, and also got an audience share of 66%. So it really seems that the devil is surrounding Doomsday Blue and Bambi Fug in this instance.
Ireland claims their best result since 1997. A great national victory, however, it's too early yet to claim that Ireland is back in action. Fixing Ireland's participation at Eurovision is a larger issue that isn't just revoked by a 1/6 place. It's still going to take years. It's going to take a lot of right decisions, because this can easily turn out to be just a one time. For the Irish themselves, however, this is undoubtedly a victory.
In seventh place, we have the perhaps underwhelming performance of Italy with La Noia and Angelina Mango. This was always what fans considered a proper contender to win, definitely always lock top 3 for a lot of people, and it ends up in 7th place. I personally put this down to the fact that for seemingly no reason, Rai decided to stage this as if it was slow-mo, with a big over-the-top dance routine. It really didn't work for the song. I think absolutely what they should have done is done it much like Sanremo, where it was about the stage presence of Angelina Mango alone, because she can capture that stage, she can capture the audience, and I think they overcomplicated it, and I think that really hurt it.
Angelina Mango proved that a woman can bring a good result for Italy, 7th place, but it's still lower than Francesco Gabbani's 6th place, Elmar and Fabrizio's 5th place. Point-wise, it's exactly the same as 6th place brought by Brividi in 2022. For any other country, 268 points would be a massive victory, but for Italy, this is the worst result since Francesca Michelini. And while they're probably not going to cry about it, it's simply just a footnote. Same with Sweden. The only worst result they got in the last decade was Tusa's 14th place. In a way, this does show that the Swedish formula didn't quite work that well this time, but at the same time, it's 9th place. No need to panic.
And yes, Sweden too, another underperformance. Although 9th place is not that bad, it is, as you say, for Sweden, quite a poor result. I think a lot of this we can put down to the fact it opened the final, although voting was open from the beginning of the show. Having Ukraine on right after probably overshadowed this as well, so that did harm it. Chris Bjorman, who made the running order, actually, although made a few bizarre decisions, including, putting Ukraine on second, which did seem really, really out to left field, It was also quite out of character for him because normally he puts a complete no-hoper dud on song second, and also he usually puts those no-hoper duds around Sweden's entry to try and give himself an advantage. But obviously, I don't think many people are under the illusion that Sweden weren't that interested in winning it again, so maybe that was a part of it. But the point is I think this underperformance did come from, in part, running order as well. But I don't think that's really going to have much of an effect. I think Melfest next year will be pretty much exactly as we expect it to be. I don't think much is going to change there. And then rounding out the top 10, we also have Portugal, Grito, Yolanda, which I've always really liked, which in our quickfire review, I said was amazing. You said you didn't like. I think most of the comment section seemed to agree with me, and so did the international juries, giving it 139 points, but the teddy vote did only give it 13 points, so it looks like I'm siding with the juries, you're siding with the teddy vote on that specific occasion. We move down to Greece, 11th, Germany 12th, a massive overperformance, thanks mostly to the juries. 13th Luxembourg, 14th Lithuania, again an underperformance there, but I think a lot of that came from having entries kind of overshadowing it, and also Lithuania being on specifically 7th in the running order, coming after what it did come after probably didn't help. 15th Cyprus, 16th Latvia, a great result for them, 17th Serbia, and then 18th the United Kingdom.
Another country that can write off this year as a loss, Oli Alexander came 18th. Sure, higher than May Miller, but he suffered the massive humiliation of receiving 0 points from the public.
Obviously not an ideal result, especially as when an outsider Alexander was the favourite to win the whole Eurovision Song Contest. I think using this as a platform to try and launch his own solo career has seemed to backfire. I think the fundamental weakness here was that the song just wasn't strong enough, and I think this result shows that no matter how well you stage a song, if the song isn't there, it's not going to do well. I think for next year, the BBC really just need to look at getting the song right first and then bringing everything else in after. And yes, that does include a strong singer, because outside of the jury finals, Ollie's vocals were not good. They were incredibly weak, and the UK really need to think about a strong song first and foremost, and then a strong vocalist, and then think about all the outside elements such as staging and presentation and release and marketing. And they need to do it in that order. The song has to fundamentally be there first. 19th we go to Finland, 20th to Estonia, 21st to Georgia, 22nd to Spain, just as we predicted, bottom 5, 23rd to Slovenia, 24th Austria, and then in last place, very sadly, Norway, Wolverham, got it, finishing up with just 16 points.
We expected Germany to set a new record of last places. Instead, Norway defends theirs, coming last for the first time since 2012. Make no mistake, this is gonna hurt them. This is Norway. They treat Eurovision almost as seriously as Sweden. They turned around their whole selection system after 2016 when they non-qualified, even though that was once. Now they technically qualified, but barely, by just a few points, and came last place.
I'll put a lot of this down to the Frulen and Ia effect, which is essentially when something is just a bit too out there, a bit too folky, and not connecting with an audience enough, it can seem very alien to the casual viewer, and I think that's exactly what happened here with Norway.
We came to Sweden expecting highest standards, and what we've gotten was fine. The stage design was good. The postcards were the best ones ever, and Pietra Miede was great as always. However, Marin was a forgettable host. The interval acts either failed or are going to get forgotten, and while the hosting wasn't a tragedy, it came below what I think when I think of Swedish standards.
I think just fine is the operative word with the hosting of the Eurovision Song Contest 2024. In both 2013 and 2016, there was very obviously a feeling that Sweden had pushed the bar further and done better hosting than both of the years before by quite a long stretch. And they'd also pushed the bar further on themselves. The 2016 hosting was notably even better than the already fantastic 2013 hosting. Obviously, 2016 was a high bar to set, but the fact we'd had many years since then with notably weak hosting meant it was always going to be fairly easy for 2024 to stand above. And although the BBC and Liverpool had done a great job in 2023, I've always had fundamentally a couple of issues with the way they hosted. Specifically, the fact there were 4 hosts I thought was always too many and made it far too crowded and made it hard to get to know the hosts. And then also the fact that I think the script wasn't very interesting. The script did the job last year, but there wasn't much humour in it. There wasn't much that made it that entertaining. It just very much was a matter of the fact. So this year had an enormous amount to gain by giving us just 2 hosts and also having a very funny script, which was the case. But yet the hosting fell quite flat. Petra was very good. Marlin less so. Just as she said, I think you can tell presenting isn't normally her thing. There were multiple occasions where she completely messed up jokes because she became stuttered or a bit slow on the autocue. She messed up reading that autocue a number of times. The fact is, that's just what made it to the live shows. In much of the dress rehearsals, she was even worse, although on occasion it was in different places, so I had seen her do jokes which she messed up on the live shows quite well in the dress rehearsals, which just didn't work out in the end, and also vice versa. All over the place, she was a bit of a mess. And I hate to say that because obviously I'm sure she was trying her hardest, but as someone who spoke English as well as her, who had been based in the United States, and to her it was basically a first language, she knew it so well, you'd think her hosting would be better compared to a lot of Eurovision hosts who don't even know English properly a few months before the contest. I was very, very disappointed in her hosting. Obviously, Petra was great as always, but nothing really pushed it beyond. It was very much we're just getting the standard, good Petra murder approach. I think we needed to one up 2016, and we absolutely did not in any way, shape, or form. As for the stage, I loved the stage. I thought the stage was the best thing about it. If it's not the best, it's certainly up there with 2014 for the best stage design ever. I really, really liked it. But one of the biggest problems was the intervals. This Eurovision just felt self-obsessed. It felt like it just couldn't get enough of itself. It felt like it was like an anniversary Eurovision, like it was the 75th anniversary Eurovision or something, but it's not. It's the 68th Eurovision. Every single interval, and I'm not joking, every single one in the whole of the 3 shows had something to do with Eurovision history. And it was tiring at a point. At first it was like, oh, we're seeing Benjamin Grosso, nice. By the time you get to seeing Charlotte Pirelli for the 4th time belt out a karaoke tune, it was great, wonderful. Again, when you see Carola show up in the final, it's like, oh, it's Carola. In 2013, when Carola showed up in the final for a surprise appearance, it was, oh, it's Carola. In this, it was, oh, it's Carola. Even though we hadn't seen her this show, we'd just seen more Eurovision winners than you can count. Even in situations where it seemed like it wasn't a Eurovision nostalgia bait act, like Bjorn Skifs appearing at the beginning of the show, it was. Bjorn Skifs had represented Sweden twice in 1978 and 1981. There was no escape from Eurovision history in this show. Literally, the only things which had nothing to do with Eurovision was a couple of the songs on the Flag Parade. Yeah, that's it. Like a couple of the Flag Parade songs. It's not even all the Flag Parade songs. Some of the Flag Parade songs definitely have Eurovision connections. So it was literally just, oh, a couple of these don't have anything to do with Eurovision, which is ridiculous. I'm all for Eurovision celebrating its past, but there was no break. It was exhausting. And as a Eurovision fan, I say this, please give us some variety. I think we all remember that Zara Larsson, the very well-known pop star from Sweden, practically volunteered over the summer to be an Interblack at this event, and yet she's nowhere to be seen. I think literally anyone would have been fine with a Zara Larsson interval here to break things up. What happened to that? Why did SVT say no to it? Now, I know that some performers did refuse to participate in this aspect of the contest because of the boycotts and because of the Israeli inclusion in the Eurovision Song Contest, and with good reason, I understand that, but we don't know the extent of this, we don't know how much this happened, and we don't know whether these intervals were last-minute replacements or not. We just know some artists chose to stay away. But overall, it felt very poor, it felt pathetic, and it was very disappointing compared to what we'd got last year in Liverpool, what we'd got in 2016, and what we got in 2013, all of which were far, far better.
The scandals have gotten so loud that they have reached even the outside public completely uninterested in Eurovision. People didn't get to hear about great music, great performances, or great messages that the artist brought to stage this year. The contest has been brought to such a disrepute that it didn't hurt only EBU, but also everyone related to it. Acts like a song about Martin Osterdahl and the greatest of EBU supervisors wouldn't sound nowhere as mean-spirited if not what was happening behind the scenes. How was SBT supposed to know that when they were writing it? You were here watching this whole mess unfolding with us, and one of the most exciting contests turning into just a frustrating experience. With that, I think we can all agree that the EBU is the biggest loser of 2024 Eurovision season. We expect resignations, apology, massive overhaul, investigations to be taken, and all this to never happen again, because for once the critics were correct. This Eurovision was political, and it almost destroyed it. Look, the contest is evolving. We all want it to evolve in the best direction, but it's not that easy to devise that best direction.
We will look more broadly into the issues and scandals and controversies of this year's Eurovision Song Contest in future episodes in the coming weeks, looking at where we can go from here, specifically with the Netherlands, specifically with Israel, specifically with the European Broadcasting Union. But while we have touched upon it here, I think we more so need to dedicate more time to that. But I would say that I think it is very remarkable how the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, have gone from being one of the most respected single international organisations in the world, with very little criticism at all, to now having lost in just a few months the respect of the clear majority of their members. People are not taking them seriously anymore. People actively are not respecting them. And that is because of a few single decisions taken by people like Noel Karan, who is the Director General of the organisation, and Martin Osterdahl, who is obviously the Executive Supervisor of the Eurovision Song Contest. Such disrepute from them, in fact, that for the first time, Martin Osterdahl was booed when he went to verify the votes at this year's contest. This flashback a year ago, and you remember people were chanting his name at the very same time. The actions they have taken have actively damaged the brand of the Eurovision Song Contest, and I've specifically called for everyone to be supportive of both of them resigning from their positions within the coming weeks and months. But congratulations to Switzerland, congratulations to Nemo, congratulations to the code and everyone involved in it. I hope we can continue to move forward through this Eurovision off-season as we unpack everything, as we talk about the Eurovision Song Contest as a whole, and as we look back in time and then get ready in September as the season begins all over again, as we look forward to the Eurovision Song Contest 2025 in Switzerland. And to keep up to date with all of that, you can follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, wherever else you may get your podcasts. That includes YouTube, where you can subscribe to us, leave a comment below, or give us a like. You can also interact with our Q&As on Spotify. But thank you so very much for listening, for interacting with us, for being a wonderfully loyal audience. And until the next time, remember to vote for the music.
This is to music first, always.
We are unstoppable.
I hope this contest can live up to its promise and continue to stand for peace and dignity for every person in this world. Thank you, vote for the music!
This is Vote for the Music, the Eurovision podcast.